Monti Ossenfort did it again. He did it again, and it seems so effortless. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy, right here. Hi. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on, man and lady, please. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I'll admit it, I have a competitive side, and I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. So a lot to digest here, a lot to go over, for lack of a better phrase. Let me just say this out. Today is going to be a very general podcast, okay? There's a lot of numbers to crunch. There's a lot of picks to go over. The Cardinals had 12. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, I have one promise to convey to you. I will be bringing on, hopefully, every single Locked On college football host pertaining to the team that which the Cardinals drafted the players. From which the Cardinals drafted the players. And it's going to be fun. We have such a great network here at Locked On, and I'm just excited to go through all of it. The goods, the not so great, the who has the highest projections, did Monti Ossenfort really draft another tight end like Alex Clancy said he should? Did Monti Ossenfort really draft Trey Benson like Alex Clancy said he should? I digress. It's going to be an in-depth look at the Arizona Cardinals organization as it looks now. There's still a whole bunch of free agency that we're going to witness. There's probably going to be some more signings from Monti Ossenfort. And what the Cardinals have right now, future pacing-wise, is a young nucleus of players that if, let's just say, take the top 5 from last year, okay? Paris Johnson, Bija Ojulari, Michael Wilson, Garrett Williams. Let's throw John Gaines in there because he was hurt before the season started, and Dante Stills. Take 6 of those, and then the 12 from this year. That's 18 picks in the last 2 years that I'm referencing from last season, and all the 12 picks this year. Say 50% of them work. That's almost half of the roster that's starting on game day. That is insane. Now, sure, there's going to be busts. There's going to be players that are good but not great. There are going to be players that are average and not good that they were drafted in the 3rd round. Maybe Garrett Williams isn't a guy. Maybe Michael Wilson. We don't know yet. But what we do know right now is the Cardinals have a young nucleus that may have never been seen in that organization ever. With veteran pillars, with Budda Baker and Kyler Murray, with Trey McBride, who's emerging as a top 5 tight end, with maybe the best offensive line we've seen in 20 years. I don't know how people can't be excited about this Arizona Cardinals organization. This Arizona Cardinals team could truly make Phoenix a Cardinal city. Not a Suns town, not a Diamondbacks town, a Cardinals town. And as difficult as that sounds with the transplant nature in the city in which they play, football wins. And the Cardinals are in a position now to wreak havoc on the NFL for the next decade. There's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of this, like there is with anything, okay? So for the people who think that, you have no idea what's going to happen. Nobody does. Should I shut this baby down? Or should we talk about what the Cardinals are positioned as pertaining to the rest of the league? Say, you know what? This team has some runway. This team has some young, freakish talent, whether proven or unproven at this point because the rookies haven't played a damn game yet, with a franchise quarterback, with a good offensive line, with a head coach and GM who see the big picture clearly. And all they got to do is play. And if they can replicate what they did last year, and the rookies take that next step, and these rookies come in and play like the rookies did last year, this team is going to be in a position for perpetual relevancy. This is not a fantastical, this is not a platitude. These are things that if we see first-round talent from Marvin Harrison Jr. and Darius Robinson in the NFL, if we see second-round talent from Max Melton and on down the list, this team is going to be very good very soon. So you've got to give your flowers to Monti Ossenfort. He's 2 for 2. And his job is to put the Cardinals in the best position to succeed with the talent necessary to do so, in the positions necessary and the position groups necessary to build out a balanced and level roster. He's done that. Now it's on the coaches and the players to do their part. Monti Ossenfort provided draft capital wealth in 2 drafts, more than Steve Keim ever thought to do. I can't wait to not talk about Steve Keim anymore, but he's still part of the story. Very, very loosely at this point, but he's still part of the story. What Monti Ossenfort has done is given the Cardinals a chance to win. They didn't have that before. Monti Ossenfort has given the Cardinals a chance to grow a culture and a team from the ground up, from the studs. The Cardinals haven't had that before. The off seasons have been boring. The drafts have been great. Boring wins. Drafting need wins. And it's something that witnessing in real time, if you don't think this is different, you're just a Cardinals hater. And that's fine. If you've listened to this podcast since 2017, every day as you'll know, I haven't always been so rosy cheeks about this team. This is new for me. I'm having an identity crisis, but I'm on the side now witnessing different things. In 2017, this team was a joke. In 2018, this team was a joke. In 2019, this team was a joke. In 2020, for 60% of this team, for 6% of the season, this team was a joke. In 2021, 40% of the season, this team was a joke, and it outweighed the 60% exponentially because everybody saw it coming. And now things are different. Now things are functional. I told you the Arizona Cardinals will be the Arizona Cardinals in name only. I told you Arizona Cardinals 2.0 is coming. I told you the Detroit Lions are the team that they need to be focused on the rebuild, mirroring that. Not the Chiefs, not the Ravens, not the Steelers. They'll never be that. From dysfunction to functionality is a huge 0-1 jump that most organizations never make. Or they do, but it's fleeting. Or they do, but just for 3 or 4 seasons. Most dynasties, where they win a handful of championships in a row in different sports, are usually teams that are bad before and they're going to be bad after. The Bulls, the Warriors. And when you look, the Chiefs in some capacity, they've made more run. When you look at what Monti Ossenfort has done, and you look at what Jonathan Gannon has done, and you look at the transformation of Kyler Murray, and you look at the veterans in the right spots, and you look at the young guys coming in, and you look at all these players who want to be Arizona Cardinals, that is different. And that is what is differentiating your parents' Arizona Cardinals or Phoenix Cardinals or Chicago Cardinals with this organization. The only thing this organization shares with past years is the name. And if you can't get excited for that, I don't know what to tell you. Alex Lancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Day one, breakdown in a general sense before we really deep dive into all of this. It's going to take a while to unpack. That's next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. Playoffs, NBA, NHL, baseball's in full swing. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe and secure and super easy to use. Like, who do you think's to win the NBA championship? It's up in the air. Is Denver just going to run through people? Is it Minnesota's time? Is it OKC's time? Can Boston finally get over the hump? You can bet on who's going to win the championship at FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And this episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by the Game Time app. So listen, Game Time is my favorite. Like, here's the thing. I like simple, and I like options. But sometimes it can be kind of convoluted, not on the Game Time app. You take the guesswork out of buying tickets. There are last-minute deals. You save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Flash deals. You save even more with exclusive in-app deals and select seats ahead of the game or event. I always go back to this example. I bought Green Day tickets for September on the Game Time app, and I didn't know because it's at Chase Field, and I've never been to a concert at Chase Field, what the viewpoint's going to look like. Is the stage in the middle of the field, like on the pitcher's mound? Is it all the way in the outfield? I had no idea. So I went on the app, and it gave me vantage points of where I was going to be, like what I was going to be seeing if I bought specific tickets, and I bought the ones where I liked the viewpoint the most. Again, it takes the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. Guaranteed. Alex Nancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks for all the support, Twitter and everything. I know it's kind of difficult to interact with with my main Twitter being down, but I appreciate everybody. Hey, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel for sports, program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team, you guessed it, every damn day. So, how's everybody feeling? You feel energized? Do you feel like the Cardinals are better now than they were? Do you feel like they maximized their draft picks? I do. Doesn't mean you have to, but I do. So let's break down day one here. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, Darius Robinson at 27. Two of the biggest needs the Cardinals had. And you could say at this point, like after free agency and them signing Jonah Williams, that's kind of where I pivoted to Marvin Harrison Jr. Although, while just crunching, like they have so many draft picks, they're going to have so much money next year. Just go and get your guy. And I get it. I know some of you have been saying that. I thought trading back was the prudent thing, but I guess there was no way they were moving up Marvin Harrison Jr., which is great. So they checked that box. So that room now looks like Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch. Okay, and I'll talk about the draft pick that they took on day 3 to Juan Palmer from UAB, big outside receiver in the next segment. And they, the pass rush was probably pass rush and corner were probably the two biggest, most dire needs the Cardinals had last season. Corner probably outweighed edge by a hair, but they needed to fill those needs. And Darius Robinson not only can play inside, interior defensive line. He plays on the edge also. Last year he played on the outside. 2 years before they played on the inside. So they can move him around. Okay, good. Being versatile on the line is important. So when you look just with those two moves, two of the biggest needs were filled. Didn't have to get cute. Didn't have to trade up. Didn't have to trade back. With the way the first round went, the Cardinals were able to trade back in the second round and still get a corner that was high on their board. So keeping it simple, keeping it boring, drafting Marvin Harrison Jr., drafting Darius Robinson, and you're good. You've got, hopefully, pillars for the future. You've got Trey McBride's running mate. And I'm just going to group Trey McBride in with the wide receivers. He's a pass catcher. He blocks really well, too, but he's going to be an integral part of this offense, obviously, in the pass catching round. And then B.J. Ojulari has his partner in Darius Robinson. I'm assuming they're going to add some sort of depth. We'll see. Again, they drafted an edge rusher later in the draft that we'll talk about in the next segment. I'm sure they're going to add some sort of veteran talent, or they just see Zaven Collins as a guy that can really, in his second year playing off the edge, be able to thrive. And if that's the case, that just wouldn't be fair. Like, everything would be bouncing the Cardinals' way. People don't even talk about Zaven Collins. I don't even talk about him like he's on the roster. Like, he hasn't done anything since he's been drafted. So what the Cardinals did on day one was boring. It was effective. And it has sky's the limit possibilities. What Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to do for this team is something the Arizona Cardinals haven't felt in 20 years. With the drafting of Larry Fitzgerald, obviously, I'm not going to compare. He's the next Larry Fitzgerald. Stop it. Stop. That's not fair to Larry Fitzgerald. It's not fair to Marvin Harrison Jr. And Larry Fitzgerald never really had a good quarterback aside from, 3-4 seasons? 5, 4? Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be put in a position to succeed right away. He's not going to be forced into a situation to bail out the GM and head coach who aren't equipped roster-wise and coaching-wise to be able to do it themselves. That's just the truth. He's going to be in an ecosystem that is stable, that is functional, that is cohesive, and that will put him in a position to succeed organically, naturally. Not just, go save the franchise, young man. Kind of like Larry Fitzgerald was. So while those two picks, people are like, boring. Sometimes boring is best. The Spurs were boring. The Patriots were boring. You know what they were also? Winners. The Steelers are boring. You know what they do? Win more games than they lose every year. Just because the 49ers are flashy doesn't mean it's the way to do it for, that. That's a ticking time bomb up there. They have to have a fire sale. And they haven't won jack. Because, they made a couple Super Bowls, so I guess that's not necessarily fair. But day one, simple, effective, set and forget, ready to roll. And we'll see. I know Darius Robinson isn't a household name. He was all SEC. He started a charity with his NIL money. Some of his NIL money, which is the polar opposite of what most of the things we see on social media and otherwise for, college athletes making millions of dollars or whatever it is. So the Cardinals situated themselves nicely on day one. And I still, just as I pivot here in day two, I'll talk about the next segment. I thought that, day one, it's just necessary to really give it the credit it deserved through Monti Ossenfort. You know what? Simple, fat trimmed. The Cardinals filled two massive needs. And that, it's made all the trades worth it. And don't start with me about comparing them to the Houston Texans. Houston Texans were a year ahead of the Cardinals, okay? They got their franchise quarterback. The Cardinals weren't going to draft a quarterback. They got their edge rusher. The Cardinals needed everything else. And they've gotten a lot from that trade. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, day 2 and day 3. Next. Yeah, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. Game on, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play, you already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game, man. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments. We work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can track with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton, including their own unique mini games like digging for treasures or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you with big, massive multipliers to help you win big for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover on Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Final segment, Alex Clancy here. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah. The Cardinals did a good job in the 72-hour spanning between Thursday through Saturday. So let's run down the rest, okay? So Marvin Harrison Jr. and Darius Robinson, round 2 and 3 looked like this. Max Melton, cornerback out of Rutgers. Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State. Isaiah Adams, offensive tackle of Illinois. Tip Ryman, tight end out of Illinois. Elijah Jones, cornerback, Boston College. Now, we're going to learn a lot more about these players again as we dig deeper into my Locked On college football arsenal to get people over here to be able to give you, from the mouth of a person that talks about and covers these players a lot more in depth than we have up until this point. The interesting pick here, first of all, Trey Benson, I think, is a home run. One of my good friends, Jason Moore from the Fantasy Footballers, I texted him, I'm like, where are we at here? Because he's like, and it was his favorite. Follow him, Jason Moore FFL, I think, on Twitter. He said, and he tweeted this out. He goes, "Now my favorite running back is on my favorite team, and I don't love it because I think it had to do with him and James Conner sharing a backfield. But the Cardinals got the running back that I thought would be perfect for them, that I mocked the majority of the time when I took a running back in the 3rd round for the Cardinals. So that's great. Isaiah Adams can play left guard. I think it'll be perfect. You can just slip him in, you just put him into left guard, and then you've got your starting lineup. Tip, the tight end out of Illinois, even though he doesn't think birds are real, he's a guy that could be that running mate for Trey McBride. Good blocker, big dude, good pass catcher, big red zone threat. You never have enough red zone targets, red zone threats from Kyler Murray. But the most interesting one was Max Melton, corner out of Rutgers, for a couple of reasons. One, the Cardinals traded back to the high 40s, and they picked up an extra 3rd-round pick. Okay, so with that move, Monti Ossenfort, I'm sure, was aware that they were not going to be able to get Cooper DeJean and another top corner. And his Rakestraw, I think. They weren't able to, they were out of the running for those guys. And Monti Ossenfort is a smart guy. Okay, so while he thought there may be a chance that they would drop, even though Cooper DeJean was looked at as a first-round talent dropping into the top of the 2nd round, Max Melton is a guy he's an everything guy. Okay, his downsides first. He gets, and this is what scouting reports have said. I've watched some film. Obviously, I'm going to dive a lot deeper into these guys throughout the offseason. He gets caught looking at the quarterback a lot. He's raw in that sense. He ran a 4.39, I believe, but his breakaway speed, his catch-up speed isn't there. Those are things that can be taught at an NFL level, okay? The things he does do well, and you'll see this as a theme for all of the corners that were drafted. They like to hit people. They're aggressive. They like to hit people. They're good stopping the run, which stopping the run for a corner at that 2nd level can mask maybe the little deficiency in the interior of the defensive line talent-wise. So we'll see how much that has to come into play. Hopefully it won't need to be a focal point that we're watching, where corners are going to have to bail out defensive linemen tackling because running back gets to the second level every time. But it's a good thing to have. Here's the thing. With the Cardinals in the cornerback room, we haven't witnessed many Cardinals corners that really just like to drill people. Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson do, but getting physical at the corner position, being able to press at the line is something that this defense needs. It needs teeth. Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis are ready to teach it. They just need the guys. And we saw the proof of concept last year with these guys ready to hit. They're ready to be feared. And that's something that we haven't seen from a Cardinals defense in some time. Going into the fourth round, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, safety out of Texas Tech. Xavier Thomas, edge out of Clemson. Xavier Thomas taking the fifth round out of Clemson. If it weren't for injuries, this guy could have been a second-round pick. Okay? He's big. He's strong. If the Cardinals found a diamond in the rough in the fifth round off the edge, it's fantastic. Again, he checks all the boxes. So we'll see if he can, come into camp and under the tutelage of Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon, some of the veterans, add some oomph to the edge rushing room. Christian Jones, this pick, tackle out of Texas, they got at 162, was revered as a hell of a value steal here. Big Texas offensive lineman. And just depth for the Arizona Cardinals with the offensive line group, it's something that hasn't been there. And now it may be the deepest we've seen in over a decade. It's wild. Tawan Palmer, wide receiver out of UAB, big, strong outside receiver. He's a deep ball threat, big play threat. He's great with 50-50 balls. And then rounding it out, Jaden Davis, corner or DB out of Miami. So when you look at what the Cardinals' needs were going into the draft, everything is lazy. They needed offensive line, or let's say going into this offseason, they needed offensive line, interior defensive line, pass rush, corner, wide receiver. They got it all. Now, we don't know if these players are going to work out. We haven't seen anything yet. And running back, too, was another one. That was way down my list, but it was still a need. So great roster construction in the NFL specifically has a couple different components. One, good players now. Star players now. Sure. Secondarily, players who haven't gotten their shot yet but have the potential just to supplant the player that they're playing behind. Perpetual motion. Compound interest. And that's what the Cardinals are setting themselves up as. And the very, very interesting thing for me, while the depth is there, 2 offensive linemen taken, 3 corners taken, 2 pass rushers taken, is how will the corners adapt to the NFL game? We saw last year in a small sample size that Garrett Williams, the game wasn't too fast for him. And that's one thing that I mention constantly. Everydayers, you'll notice, first of all, thank you for being everydayers. Second of all, this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, something I say a lot. The one thing you want to avoid seeing in the rookie's first year, obviously, and especially in the first handful of games their first year is, oh no, they're not ready. And because a lot of times, unless it's a quarterback or running back, sometimes it might take, a couple games to get their legs. But Isaiah Simmons was not ready. Week 1, Kyle Shanahan, Raheem Mostert, angle route, 75 yards to the house. I think it was the first play from scrimmage. First or second, it was the first series. It's like, oh no, not ready. Zaven Collins, preseason, rookie year, oh no, not ready. And then you see last year, Garrett Williams was ready. He only played a couple games. Michael Wilson was ready when he finally got targets. Paris Johnson Jr. was ready. Played against some of the toughest fronts in football with Josh Dobbs behind, playing quarterback. The thing you want to avoid seeing is the oh no. Either oh no, what have we done? Or oh no, not ready. Especially if that player is positioned and placed to be a starter week 1. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the corners specifically because they need help. Sure, sign Sean Murphy-Bunting. Max Melton's played inside and outside, so that's good. I'm assuming you moved Garrett Williams into the slot, but this is, I don't think roster construction's done yet. I don't think it's done yet. They need another pass rusher. They need another defensive lineman. You know, they probably could use another wide receiver. I was surprised that they didn't draft a wide receiver earlier. I was really hoping, like, anybody that's watches, I have a love affair with Troy Franklin from Oregon. I just think he'd be great. I know that the measurables at him, you know, his performance after the season ended, like, people are starting to jump back on him a little bit. I was hoping you could pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think that they're just ready for Michael Wilson for year 2, Greg Dortch to be able to take the roof off of the defense and, you know, be very effective in the slot. And then having Trey McBride it kind of makes the wide receiver room look weaker than it actually is, because it's like a pass catching group, as I mentioned. So I know that this was very broad. Okay. We're going to talk a lot more about this. And before we know it, in May, the schedule gets revealed. And then it's list season for like 2 weeks. And then we're off to the races with rookie minicamp and actual OTAs. And then week 1 will be here before you know it. And I hope you stay with me. Please, if you're not subscribed, please go to Locked On Arizona search Locked On Arizona Cardinals on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, turn notifications on. It's only going to get better from here. Remember, without you, there is no me. Alex Sensen, Locked On Cardinals.